In order to maintain his state, a prince is often forced to act in defiance of good faith, of charity, of kindness, of religion. He should not deviate from what is good if that is possible, but he should know how to do evil if that is necessary.
The notion that necessity could justify behavior which was not otherwise virtuous or moral was actually accepted by almost all of the ancient thinkers.
Lincoln's critics in his day thought he was a dictator, thought he was a tyrant, thought he was undemocratic, thought, in spite of all the folksy backwoods charm, that he was an egomaniac and was operating unconstitutionally much of the time. In the case of, for example, the suspension of habeas corpus, he probably was. And this is perhaps a great example of Machiavellian leadership in a democracy.
There is a physics of politics, and sooner or later every leader discovers for himself the laws of relativity and uncertainty, also known as the law of unintended consequences.
Taking everything into account, he will find that some of the things that appear to be virtues will, if he practices them, ruin him, and some of the things that appear to be vices will bring him security and prosperity.
Messeri ci hanno dato la lista di capponi e lui ha confessato e ha fatto dei nomi.
Dimmi, che nome ha fatto?
Pietro
The
Paolo
reinstalled Medici have discovered a plot to overthrow them, and they have a list of people the plotters hope to recruit. The seventh name on the list is Niccolò Machiavelli. The plotters never got to Machiavelli. It doesn't matter. He's a suspect, and the Medici don't need much excuse to throw him into prison. It is a prayer chanted by priests for those about to die. This chanting is for the list makers. Prison here has two functions: execution and interrogation. Interrogation means torture, quite legal and quite ingenious. What awaits Niccolò is the strappado, hands tied behind the back, hoisted by the wrists, and dropped part way. If the drop is far enough, it will tear the shoulders out of their sockets. Niccolò's drop is obviously less severe, but it is torture, and he learns well the uses of pain.
The bond of love is one that men break when it is to their advantage to do so. But fear is strengthened by a dread of punishment which never abandons you.
For Niccolò, the experience of the past few months has not been conducive to a romantic view of life, but it has been instructive. In the spring of 1513, Giovanni de' Medici becomes Pope Leo X, and Machiavelli is released in a general amnesty, but with restrictions. He is restricted to the region around Florence, barred from the city hall, banned from politics. He moves to the family's property a few miles out of the city. There he is free, in his own kind of hell, an addict cut off from his source. Only someone who's been there can know the pain. Gary Hart was the prince presumptive of the Democratic Party, before fortune and his own indiscretion cut him off.
In many ways, hell is possessing a talent which one cannot use. And this was Machiavelli's hell. And a profound one for him, because he understood how talented he was and how visionary he was. And I think it must have been desperately hard for him, as it would be, for example, for a politician today who had both the talent and, here's the crucial element, a monolithic dependence on the addiction of participation. Speaking only for myself, I tried desperately, and with some success, not to become so dependent on politics or on the adrenaline of participation that I couldn't do without it.
In a letter to a friend, Niccolo describes the narrow confines of his current life, supervising work on his property and killing time with the locals in the local inn.
With these I sink into vulgarity for the whole day, playing at cards. And these games bring on 1,000 disputes with the countless insults, and usually we are fighting over a penny. So involved in these trifles, I keep my brain from growing moldy.
The personal Machiavelli seems entirely human. He is compassionate, witty, and profane, even sometimes obscene. He is married, but he is attracted to other women, and they to him.
Machiavelli was a great guy. He was friendly, affable, loyal to his friends. He loved to go out drinking. He loved women. He loved good conversation. Just an ordinary, nice guy.
Well, ordinary may not be the best word, but certainly Machiavelli seems anything but Machiavellian. He is personable. He is also a very talented guy.
He wrote the best comedy of our literature, La Mandragola, in 1518. And, okay, there's a comedy with the bitter and even the somber undertones, but it's a lively play, wonderful.
On the coming of evening, I return to my house and enter my study. And at the door I take off the day's clothing covered with mud and dust, and put on garments regal and courtly, and reclothed appropriately, I enter the ancient courts of ancient men, where, received by them with affection, I feed on that food which is mine and which I was born for.
Niccolo begins to work on what he calls the Discourses on the First 10 Books of Titus Livy. It is a book of commentaries on the work of that Roman historian, and makes a strong case for a republican form of government.
Then all of a sudden, he decides to try to get back into the government himself and writes in furious time, in 3 months' time, The Prince. He interrupts the writing of the Discourses to take off this time to write The Prince, because he's anxious to get back into politics, into government life.
Are there two Machiavellis here? One writing a book on the republican form of government, and the other, almost simultaneously, writing advice for tyrants.
I look at Machiavelli's Prince as a work on statesmanship, and the Discourses as a statement of desirable objectives. And so I don't find the two incompatible with each other.
Politics was his consuming interest, and if he could have made the world the way he wanted it to be, he would have preferred a republic. But he could live with both republics and with principalities, and his point was that you begin from where you are, and that you judge any form of government by its outcome rather than simply by its form.
All the states, all the dominions, under whose authority men have lived in the past and live now, are either republics or principalities. Principalities are either hereditary.
So begins the most famous job application in history. It joins Niccolo's passion for a united Italy with the fact of Medici rule. It urges the reigning Medici to take on a new role as nation founder. Niccolo offers a blueprint for a new kind of leader. So, who is this ideal prince? What are his qualities? Roughly that combination of strength of character, intelligence, courage, skill, and luck, which astronauts call the right stuff, plus a touch of ruthlessness.